this should be better. Okay, I think this is working now. Okay. Great. So I'm gonna kill this for now. I apologize for the mess up there. Put my chat here. Yeah, it should be good. Okay. Start recording. I don't want to record here. Alrighty, I apologize for that mistake. Had to kill the stream and just re-add it. So let me actually type that in. Yeah, so let's go ahead and add that there. Anyway, I think we're good to get started here. Sorry about that. I guess I'm just going to have to learn how to navigate my streaming software a little bit better over time. But anyway, so basically my main goal today was just to capture some footage for the bow and arrow attack video I wanted to do next. So I thought may as well just do it through a stream. Thought it would be a lot easier. Plus, it's just something to try to get more familiar with. I'm not usually the biggest fan of streaming because I don't particularly like to figure out things on the fly, but it's fine. I think I'll just do it as I'll try to stream it when I can, and maybe I'll get more comfortable with it over time. But I think while we're here, I'm also going to try to show some concepts and stuff too, so anybody in the audience can ask questions and we can have an engaging experience. Otherwise, just sit back and chill. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started then. Can you hear me? Actually, let me also just diagnosis check here. Because I've been playing with too many settings. Cool, thank you. Anyway, I'm going to get started just by kind of using this little canvas here. We'll just talk about like the process I use to put together like a bow and an arrow attack animation. And actually, before we even do that, let's look at what it would even look like to begin with. So this is like what my game looks like so far. There's not really a whole lot going on. I still have a lot of work to do. But basically, I made this like bow here. This is also very unpolished. But basically, there's like a bow here, and then when I press the attack button, she'll draw it and then just shoot an arrow. It's pretty basic, but there is some animation in the bow itself. The bow itself will contract a little bit and then fire. So we'll basically show how to do that. Time permitting, I'll also spend some time putting it into Godot, but for now we're going to start focusing on basically the concepts, and then we'll also just build a bow in Blender and kind of rig it. We'll go from there. So a couple of things we could talk about here. So yeah, it's this drawing. Okay, cool. So there's basically a few components of the bow and arrow, I guess, animation we could talk about the process here. So you're gonna have the bow itself, right? And then you also have to have the archer, which is my character here, but we'll talk about that in a second. The bow itself is gonna be kind of like, it'll be a little better here, like this, right? You got an arrow, hypothetical arrow, right? But the arrow is also separate, so let's also mention that. But with the bow, there's a few things to keep in mind. Is that and then we got to talk about use cases. So the character is first going to have a stationary animation. So they're going to hold the bow in their, I believe it's their non-dominant hand. This is probably something that would probably be worth researching a little bit on archery, but maybe I'll do that and talk about it in the video itself, but we'll see. Basically, you hold the yeah. Actually, the way I have it set up is she holds it in her non-dominant hand. That way, she can use her dominant hand to fire the arrow. So, in that case, the bow is going to be um, in a stationary state. And then in the stationary state, um, that's kind of just holding the bow, doing nothing with it. It just exists, basically. Um, Now, when you're firing the bow, there's going to be a pullback state. So that's going to be, let's say, this, but it's going to be pulled like this. And then you got your string here, basically, hypothetically. Actually, no, a string would be like this. And this is pullback. The pullback state should be activated when the character actually is about to attack. It draws the bow back. And I think what's good about the pullback state, and something we can keep in mind just to make the animation a little more believable, is that we'll want to gradually transfer from the stationary to the pullback state. So we can put a frame where the pullback is active, but we can also animate in between that stationary and that pullback state. And then when we link it in the game, we'll control that basically with like knowing basically a ratio of frames. And then after that, when you fire the arrow, there's the release state. The bow's going to kind of have a little bit of a flex when it releases. It's going to be release. And then once it releases, it's going to snap into that state, and it's going to snap back into the stationary state afterwards. So this is kind of just a cycle of animations that we're going to put together. Can I zoom? No, not normally. So that's basically what the bow is going to look like. Now, to accomplish this stuff, we could do it a number of ways. But I think one of the easier ways to do this is to actually just build a rig on the bow itself. And we'll put a couple of like bones in place so that we can get that flex to work as well. When we implement the bow, it'll make more sense. But there would be a bone here on the base. And then there would be a chain of bones on each side of the bow. And then we could flex that to make an animation into each state. And then what we can do is we could actually build a state machine in Godot or in Blender as well, wherever. And then we just animate from the stationary to the pullback, and we can set that as its own animation. And then we'll just kind of make it a ratio between 0 and 1, so that when the bow is actually being moved in the game, we can tie the frames relative to like the animation that's being played. I'll explain a little bit more as we get to that point. So yeah, there's that. And then there's... and then the release is also just kind of like, we can just make a fixed animation to do that part. We don't necessarily need to mess with ratios or anything like that. So it'd be pretty straightforward. So we'll see that. So that's the bow itself. Actually, before we talk about the arrow, let's talk about the archer. The person driving the bow animation. Now, I think this really will largely depend on your game. However, I've modularized it in my game because one of the major reasons why is because I want to be able to, mostly the way how I configure like how attacks work in the game. I basically create a data set and I link animations to them, rather than having like a bow and arrow connected to the character herself. I have those objects separate, so it does make things a bit jankier when you're implementing them, but we can still make it work if we treat them as 3 separate components. We just have to tie them together in code. So anyway, so we're going to have to make the bow and arrow attack animation on the archer. And just like the bow states, you're going to have the bow, and then you're going to have basically your standard attack animation. But we're also going to need to be aware of when the archer starts pulling the bow and arrow back and when the archer fires the arrow. So we're going to have to look at the key frames of where that happens. If you really wanted to really, not necessarily make this complex, but if you really wanted to make this more physically accurate, you could hook up the bowstring to an IK setup in your game, and then just use an attachment, like a bone attachment in Godot's case, to link your character's hands to the bow itself, so that you have more control of like the pullback. In my case, I don't really care, so I'm just going to kind of fudge it. But just like the bow, we're also going to have those states in the attack animation where character pulls the bow up, starts pulling it back, and then fires it. And then we're going to have to control that motion as well. What I'm going to do is to make the bow attack animation is I'm actually going to go in Blender, load my character, and then we'll animate that motion with the bow in the Blender scene, but we won't actually export the bow with the character. Instead, we'll just instantiate the bow and apply it in Godot manually that way. And then that's kind of how I would drive that. This also gives you flexibility too, so you can change the model the bow is. You could change your arrows around, stuff like that. And even more importantly is you can have this animation that you make for firing an arrow more reusable across your characters or other things in your game. So I'll kind of go through that. There's still a lot of refactoring I feel like I can do with my implementation, but I want to at least explain it thoroughly enough that it can at least be understood, and we can go through it. Okay, so now let's talk about the arrow. I think the key thing to know about the arrow here is it doesn't really matter what your arrow looks like. I'm not actually going to model an arrow right now. I'm just going to use a cylinder, just, keep it simple for now. But you could model an arrow in Blender and all that jazz. But basically what I'm going to do is, I think the important thing we need to know about the arrow is we need to know when to spawn the arrow and how to kind of bring it into the animation as a whole. If only I can really step through the animation in the game. I'm not sure if I still have that slow-mo button implemented. Let me see if I do. I do. Okay, cool. This will make things easier. Don't mind the wacky jiggle physics. But with the slow-mo, you can kind of see her pull the arrow back. It's kind of hard to see at this angle, the camera. But let me see if there's a... But the arrow is supposed to spawn basically right around when she draws it back. So it's not going to spawn really at step one. But you can kind of see how the bow contracts as well. So anyway, okay, return to normal. So basically what we're going to want to do is spawn the arrow instance in, let it follow the hand back, and then once she releases it, that's when we turn the arrow into a projectile that fires forward. So we'll have to add that logic too. So let's say that is, we need to spawn arrow, follow hand, and then release it. Then it becomes a projectile. Hope you don't mind my bad handwriting. So that's generally speaking how that works. And this is really just the logic here. Any questions at this point? And the first thing we'll do is we'll start modeling the bow. I think that's going to be the easiest place to start. Um, so let me go ahead, and I believe, yeah, let me flip my screen now over to my primary monitor. Same thing over here. Cool, thank you. Okay, yeah, because I'm also going to kind of record this behind the scenes, so hopefully this works. But yeah, anyway, so we're just going to open up Blender. Is it back now? Can you hear me? It should have returned. Okay, cool. Thank you. Um, cool. Yeah, the cord was loose. That's why. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead, put Blender here, and we'll just remove. We won't actually delete the default cube this time. Typically, when I make weapons in Blender, I like to operate from the top orthographic view. And then I just make sure I have all the orientation of the weapons consistent with each other when I build them. I have to scale them, of course, as well. I'll show you kind of the old example I have. This wooden bow, I guess you can call it. So you can see the layout, the orientation here is actually Y up, X to the side. So we're going to stick with that, and then it's going to face upwards. So I think another good place to start would be to just grab a reference image. I'm just going to find a random. Okay, can I please? Yeah. Reference bow. Yeah. A weapon. Alright, I'm just gonna find any old image I can work with. Something preferably a little bit cooler. Okay, this one looks pretty good. Let me just save it in my temp folder. There we go. Okay, now we're cooking. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale this up. We got to rotate it. Okay, it's not going to be exact. That's fine though. Yeah, kind of. We're going to do the one at the very top here. Just going to adjust it so it looks kind of decent. Hide that for a sec. Now I can turn the selection off on the reference. I can bring my cube back. And basically just really simple stuff here is we're going to go ahead and just add a mirror modifier, all the basics. Subdivision wouldn't hurt too. And then what I'm just going to do is I'll just kind of pull the cube back. We'll put the clipping here. Scale it down a little bit. Let me also put shade smooth on. And then we can just model this. I'm just going to make it very simple. And then on the side here, I'm just going to need to inset. There we go. Inset this a little bit. And I can just kind of start. Crap. Sorry. Extruding a little bit. Follow the contour here. Not going to do anything too fancy. Oops. So yeah, scale that down a little bit. And then I can just kind of scale these. I'm also going to just do something like that too. Yep, make sure we're okay. Yeah, scale that too. Yep, there we go. Nothing fancy here. Okay. And I can also just adjust over here. Oops. Nothing, yep. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Now we're gonna have to make the oh, awesome. I'm glad to hear this is exactly what you're looking for. Nice voice. That's the first time I've actually heard that. My voice is, I don't know, I don't usually hear people have a similar voice to me. Well, anyway, yeah, it's nice to hear this is what you're looking for. So I hope this helps. Add a little more resolution, but I'll just do that with subdivision. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Oh, this one looks weird. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, I know what's going on. Give me a sec. I'll just extrude that way. That should help. And I could just dissolve this one. Oh wait, it's a cube. Dissolve. Oh, sorry, my bad. Dissolve edge. I think we're okay now. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Another thing to note here is that this also needs to flatten. So let me do that. There we go. This side's a little bit fine, but I will also flatten it a little bit. Right. Okay. This will work. Not anything too, exciting, but this will work. Okay, anyway, so we made our bow. Let me also make a bowstring here. So based on the model itself, I'll just do it this way. Just gonna take this right here, duplicate it, and then we'll just connect it. We'll make the string first, and then we'll just connect it. I'm gonna remove the face as well. Oops. I guess I'm fumbling my keyboard shortcuts a little bit here. Delete face. There we go. It's open. Oops. There we go. Make it nice and thin. Alright. And I want to give it a little bit of resolution as well. I could just extrude it a couple times. We'll adjust this as need be. Yeah, we're good. Okay, yeah. We'll make adjustments when we get there. Okay. So now what I need to do is, okay, I actually need to flatten this a little bit. There we go. Okay. And then we need to connect this to the bow itself. So I'm actually just going to make a extrusion here. And we'll just, what I'll do is I'll just do it the hard way, I guess. We'll play around with this. Okay. It's a little weird. Actually, you know what? I think this is I have a better idea. Actually, I think I'll still leave that there. If I could just extrude straight in there. Just let it intersect it. When we rig it, we can address kind of where that goes. At least that way it looks a little bit cleaner than trying to connect it manually. Okay, so now here's our bow. Let me save this to some place. Yeah, the way I kind of save it in my system here is I actually have created codes for every weapon in the game. I'll just create one. This will just be bow 1. And I'll just put it here. We'll just save that. Okay, so now we need to talk about the rig. So we're going to have to put a base bone here. And actually, if I go ahead and pull up my other example, you can kind of see this is how this looks. There's a base bone right here, and then there's a few bones mirrored basically on the bow itself. And then you can see there's a default, there's the pullback. And I think I just tween it between. And then there's the fire, which is an animation itself. Yeah, okay. So that's just an example. So let's go ahead and add the rig. I did not account for the string before, so I might have some issues trying to do this live on stream, so bear with me here. But without the string, it's pretty simple. Okay, I'm going to hide the reference image. Let's go ahead and do Shift A and add a armature. I'll just start with a single bone. And we're going to have to rotate this thing 90 degrees to there. Also, I think a really nice thing to do with bones in particular is their viewport display, make them in front. You can also display, yeah, I think this is fine. This is the armature. Yeah, I don't think we need to do any rigify or anything like that. That's a little overkill for this. And I think I centered this kind of here, shrunk it down. So it's like right here. We're going to give this the base. Okay, and then what I'm going to do now is just duplicate this bone. And we're just going to make this chain here. And you can add, you could go pretty liberal with the amount of bones you hear. It really just depends on kind of how much precision you want the animation to have. I wouldn't do too many though, just because that might fry your game. But I'll just do a few here. And I'm just going to call this, let's call this bow.r. Nothing fancy. And I'm just going to keep extruding more around the edges like this. Now I can do this. I can, once I can press L to select link. Actually, that's a great idea. Screencast keys. Let me turn these on. So now I can press L to select linked, and then just right click symmetrize, And it didn't do anything. Okay, awesome. Oh, it's because I put it on the wrong side. Okay. What did I do wrong here? Give me 1 second. Just gonna look at these. This is bend L. Oh, I might have them on the wrong side. Give me 1 moment. Yeah, I'm gonna have to Control Z. Okay, there we go. These are R, right? So I'm actually just going to switch direction. No, not like that. Actually, here's what I'll do. I'll just mirror. Okay. Do it manually. That's fine. Now, hopefully, when I symmetrize, this will work. It's still giving me trouble. That's fine. I'll just go back to the way it is. Symmetrize. And then I just have a new set that I can just mirror. X global. Alright, I'll just do it the hard way. It's fine. Not a biggie. Have the... Okay, I think it's like around there, right? Yeah, okay. Should have worked better, but that's fine. We'll roll with it. Okay, anyway, we got a parent bow L to the bend. And we'll just make a parent make with the offset. I know I could use a shortcut key, but I'm being lazy. Okay. Cool. So that's that part. Now we just got to do the string. So I'm just going to duplicate one of the bones. We're just going to call this one string. I guess we could mirror these. I don't know if it matters that much. I'm just going to call it string. We'll just do string.r. Just flatten it on its... There we go. Flatten on the y-axis a little bit. Just something like that. Put it like this. Make sure it's actually at location 0. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. Oh. Actually, should be Y. Huh. Okay. It's a little more backwards than I expected. Let me just do it this way. Move that to 0, SY0. There we go. And now I can just put it like that. It's a little bit better. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead. Make this. Actually, no. This is easier. Nice. Okay, so then I do the big bone like this, and we can just do a little bit of subdividing. There we go. And then also want to symmetrize, but it also gives me a hard time. Oops, let me just mirror X global. Same thing here. I'll just snap it to one of the bones. There we go. Actually, no, let's just snap it to vertex. Just snap to the bone. Yeah, grid. Grid maybe. Nope. Nope. Okay. Don't mess with it then. Overthinking this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we get that here. Mirror. Global. Kind of like right around there. Okay. Actually, now I'm thinking about this. No, I don't think I want these to be mirrored. So I'm actually going to, but instead what I'll do is I'll just scale. I'll just scale these ones. Scale it basically from here. We'll just do like a rough estimate here. Put these in the center. Okay, so at least these are parented to themselves, right? I think I could probably do this. I'll have to see if this works at all. But if we do parent make with the keep offset and then parent the string bones to the end of the bones. Okay. Also, I did just see your question, by the way. Thank you for subscribing. TN Turbinip, thank you for joining the channel. Yeah, about game jams. I have to be completely honest with you, is I haven't actually gone to one. I would like to, though. It's something that I think I want to do more of. I want to get more involved with the game dev community as a whole. Unfortunately, I've kind of done a lot of things in the shadows for many years. And I want to try to get more out there anyway. So, yeah, I think... I know there's a lot of advice online. It's like, oh, yeah, you should always just be releasing games and stuff like that. I don't think you necessarily need to do that in order to make games. I think as long as you, like, are still, like, working on games of your own, you'll learn how to do them. I think what seeing a game through does, though, is it helps you understand the whole cycle. Helps you go from saying, I made a game from scratch. I also put the Steam store link together. I did all that stuff. So it lets you see the whole life cycle, basically, from planning to completion. Game jams are basically a very micro version of that, and it can be a very good experience based on what I know about them. But I, too, have to actually do some. And I would like to. So it's really up to you. It may be hard to do based on where you live. It could be very different. If you're near big cities, you'll probably find that to be easier. But if you're in more remote location, it'll be a lot harder to do a game jam. I also think there are like completely remote game jams. I think they were doing a couple during COVID. That we could look into as well. But I do appreciate the question. Anyway, so this is the rig. Admittedly, this is going to, the string's going to be a little questionable because I actually haven't really done much with the string yet. So if that doesn't really work too well, I'll go ahead and do it without the string, and I'll just have to engineer the string part later. But anyway, here's what I'll do. Okay, I'm going to separate the string from the model itself. We'll just separate the selection. And then what I'll do is I'll take the bow model and we'll take the bow itself and the rig, and we'll just do a parent. We could do automatic weights as well. Let's go ahead and just do a quick, oh, my bad. Do a quick pose mode test here. Should see that we can see that this does in fact rig the bow itself, so that's pretty good. May have to play around with some of the other parts, but it does work. And then if you wanted to do the mirror, you can also do that. Although it didn't mirror it quite the same way I was hoping. I'm gonna have to flip that. Have to see why that didn't work as expected. But now I can move the whole bow. That's pretty good. So let's go ahead and do that. Same thing here. Take the bowstring and just parent it. We'll just play around. Wait a second, what the heck happened? Give me a sec. Go to pose mode. Alt G, R, S, reset everything. Okay, good. Take the string and with automatic weights. There we go, should be a little better. So now if I go to pose mode, I can move. Okay, so this, yeah, this is not that great. Okay. Okay. Anyway, let's come back to the string in a minute, but I think what I'm going to need to do is put a bow in the center like I did here, and then I can make a chain to basically animate it. But I'm going to just not worry about it for now. Let's just go ahead. Apologies for that. It's going to need a little more time in the oven. But we'll get that working at some point. But this, for the most part, works. Let me just compare it to what I have going on here. So I'm pretty sure, yeah, this mirror works. I'm not exactly sure why mine's having such a problem here. Because if I do, yeah, it goes in the wrong direction. I think I might have to adjust the roll to bones. Let me go edit mode. The roll edit mode. Okay. Give me a second. The roll here is 90 degrees. Yeah. So it's 90 and negative 90. Okay, that's why. So let me just go ahead and fix that. All these bones. So there's this property called the bone roll, and this just gets really hairy sometimes with rigging. Just know that this is like kind of like the longitude kind of thing that it rolls on. I'm just going to basically highlight all of these, hold the Alt key, click on the roll property and just set to 90. And do the same thing for this over here. Holding the Alt key allows you to update all of them at once. At least, so hopefully that helps. Now, so it looks like we're still having a number of issues with this. That L, R. Okay. Probably because these aren't like truly mirrored. Yeah, let me try just deleting one side of it. Sorry, bear with me here. Unfortunately, with these streams, we're going to have to do a little bit of real-time debugging. At least in the final video, you won't see this stuff, but it can be helpful sometimes. Really up to you if you're just here to try to get an answer real quick, or if you're interested in seeing the process real time. Anyway, if I click symmetrize, does that do anything better? No. This is bow R, R1, 2, 3, 2, yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think this is technically, well, this is front, right? This, yeah, this would be the right side, and I don't really understand why this is giving me such a problem. Okay. Let me look at my other rig real quick. this is L. If I do this, yeah, on the front side it's not L really. Okay, so let's try that. Let's try to set this to L. I think I could flip the names. Flip names, here we go. This is now L. Let's try to symmetrize it again. It's still giving me problems. I don't know why I'm getting so many problems with this. Okay, let me just clear the parent. Parent clear. Alright. This should just work. I'm missing something. Crap. So the rig's at 0. Rotation. Okay. Crap. You know what? That might be part of the problem. Give me a sec. Okay, so if I take this model here and I just apply everything. Okay. Now let's try that. Kill the R bones. Oops. Wait a second. Alright. Now let's try. That's better. Okay, there we go. That was the problem. Yeah, with these rigs, you kind of have to make sure that if you're doing any sort of transformation object mode that you apply it. Otherwise, you're just going to have really weird results. But this should be much better now. Okay. And we'll just go back to there. The armature, I think this will still pose. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to have to re-rig it though. Not a biggie. Parent with automatic weights. Now we should be good to go. There we go. Now it's much better. Huh. Okay. So let's talk about this one. Good question. Is making procedural animations difficult? Say, making a string snap to the player's muzzle hand in engine. I think it really depends on what you're kind of looking to do. It definitely requires some effort. In my experience, like doing something like that, you'd have to set up like an IK in the game engine and stuff like that. I think it really ultimately depends on like what you really, if it's like worth it to you. Like to me, I don't particularly care about implementing that in my game. I'm just going to kind of make it fixed toward the animations, but it might make more sense if like you want to have more like variance in your like bow shooting animation, or you want it to look a bit more realistic. I just don't find it really worth setting up all those IKs and all that stuff, but you could certainly do it. I would have to play around with it more. It's something I figure. Anyway. Okay, so now we got our bow rigged. We'll have to figure out the string, but we'll get back to that one. So with this bow rigged, basically, I want to talk about the three main driving animations. So we'll just kind of start with that. So there's going to be, let's just go ahead and go to our dope sheet and just select action editor. We're going to create a new animation here and just call it default. This will just be the idle state of the bow. Just make sure you select all the bones, Alt G, Alt RSS to reset all the locations. And then we'll just press I to make a keyframe on everything. And then this will just be our default Um, and we'll leave it at that. And then we're going to make the pullback state. So I believe if we looked at my other example, the pullback state is actually a single frame in Blender. And the reason why is because in Godot, I actually made a state machine that blends the two states. And I'll explain why I do it in the context of my game. But it really depends more if your animation is going to be fixed or if you're going to have a lot more like variance. Like I did it this way because I could swap with the animation. So I didn't want to like actually just animate it directly on the character. Okay, so we start with this default here. I'm going to hit the shield button here to make a fake user. If you're not aware, the fake user is actually just a mechanism that tells Blender to hold on to that animation, don't delete it when you're cleaning up data in your Blender file. And then push down so it's on your NLA stack. The NLA stack, it's not here. This is like how you can kind of combine animations together. For the most part, you use it just for exporting. As far as game engines go. Let's go back to Action Editor. Okay, so now we're going to do a new animation. We'll call this the pullback. And then in this case, just so we can kind of see what's going on, I'm actually going to keyframe the idle. And we'll just kind of move this over to like frame 40 or so. And then we'll do the pullback. Then in this case, I'm not going to do any fancy IKs or anything like that. We'll just use like the auto IK, and we'll just kind of pull this back, kind of like that. I can kind of pull this as well, and then you can exaggerate as much or as little as you want. And then we'll just go ahead and do a keyframe. Now you can see kind of how this blends in. But just like I said before, I'm going to just go ahead and save it as a single frame. And then we'll set up that state machine in Godot. So that's the pullback, same thing, fake user, push down. And then we'll have to do the release animation. So with the release, we'll just create another new one. We'll call it release. And this animation, we do actually want to have have some keyframes. So go ahead and start with the pullback here. And then we're going to go, say like frame 10 or so. I'll just switch back to default, copy the frames here. Copy the pose, go to release, and we'll paste it in on frame 10. You can put auto keying on. I actually would have to drag this up here. Yeah, there we go. Change it to timeline. Auto keying on, but I will have to manually key this one. So now you can kind of see it goes here. But there is something you can do, and then we needed to snap past. Let's see if I can find this. Pose, in-betweens. I think push pose from breakdown, right? We can kind of do a little bit of this. I'm going to try to find where to do that exactly. Let's try this. But there's this tool, this in-between. Remember, relax pose from breakdown. No, that's not it either. Let me try somewhere around here. No, it's not quite. I thought there was a way to extrapolate it. that's fine. We'll just do it manually. So we kind of blend this to here. But I'm going to duplicate frame 10 to frame 20. And then we're going to pose on frame 10. This is where we're going to want to kind of extrapolate it a little bit. Oops. This is very exaggerated, but you kind of get the idea. We'll kind of do something like that. Something like that, right? So now you should see that this is kind of like that. So it snaps into place, right? And if you really wanted to, you could kind of like add a little bit more oscillation. So let's see. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I think the way you do more oscillation is that you can kind of like push this you can use that pose breakdowner tool actually. Let's see. Push pose. Not quite. I could have sworn there was one to extrapolate it to, but this is okay. But basically you could just kind of like add more keyframes and then slowly kind of have it go back. But it does with the type of animation we got here. We can actually change the easing mode or the interpolation to Bezier. It should also kind of get a similar feel. Yeah. Okay. And let me just double check with the other example here. We look at the fire. I made it 10 frames. Let's go to object mode. Yeah, similar experience. So I'll just shrink this one to 10 frames. Go back. X is 0, shrink to 10. Okay, and then we should be good. Do the seed range, cool. So yeah, we should now have a fire. Okay, cool. So let's go back, make that a fake user, and we'll push that down as well. We can just go to object mode. I'm going to set it back to the default here. It looks like that's on frame 1. Move it to 0. Kind of save it. I think I called this fire. Okay, I'm just going to switch this. Instead of release, I'm just going to call it fire. Keep it consistent. Just go back to default. There we go. And I think fire pullback should be, I want that 0 as well. Default. Okay, cool. So now we have a bow. Don't really have any texture on it. Not going to really focus on that now. Because with my game, I really have very just solid colors. I don't really have textures. That's something I'm probably going to address in the future. But I'm just going to leave this as is. So at least now we have a bow. So we're going to keep this here. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to make a bow animation on the archer. So we'll do that. I'm still learning more about animation, and the animation stuff I do right now is very placeholdery. So, but I can generally understand the process, so I'll do that, but I'm not an expert by any means. but I like to at least share what I learned. This regardless. So save this bow. I'm gonna go and open. Let's open another. Open my character. Here we go. Okay. Oops. That. Give me a sec. I think we should be alright here. Cool. So back to character. So we got a similar thing here. We got the animation. And I'm just going to turn the armature on. And then let's lower this a little bit. Okay. So typically with some fundamental, like the fundamental thing you do with an animation, like whenever you're making an animation from scratch, is you're going to want to identify some key poses to the animation. So let me actually go back to Godot here real quick. It'll just be easier to show you here because I got to turn the animation tree off. Give me a sec. The animation player, here we go. That way we can look at it from the side view here. So yeah, this is obviously a very scratch animation here. It's not a whole lot of detail, but you're basically what you want to do. And actually, I think like this is not a bad idea when you're prototyping your game, is just don't spend too much time on the animations. As long as they kind of convey the motion, you can go back and you can adjust them and make them prettier. But basically what we're going to try to do is find some key poses. So there's going to be the pose where she kind of gets into position, like this one right here. And typically, in this case, she has her left hand back. This is the one she's going to be holding the arrow with. The right hand right here where she's trying to bring the bow into place. And she kind of has her feet in a certain position here. Then we're going to go... Can I zoom this in? Yeah, I can. Okay, cool. There's going to be a frame where she basically initiates. She's going to have the one... the bow's going to be right here. And actually what I can do, just to show this while we're talking, is I could just put it on the attachment on here. Just so we can kind of see what we're looking at. I think I might have an arrow too. I think I might have an arrow. Oh no, I just put it in her. That's not where I want that to be. Let's see. Let me go ahead and transform. There we go. That's better. Okay, so we can kind of see. Let me move the animation back a little bit so we can kind of see that, like, this is what the arrow would look like. Obviously I could position this better and all that stuff, but let's not worry about that. You can kind of at least see that it's in her hand. In her left hand, she's going to have an arrow there, and she's going to have the bow in her right hand here. So there's one keyframe here. It's going to be basically just stepping into position. Then there's going to be a couple frames later. She's got the bow basically initialized with the arrow in place. And then hypothetically, the arrow would be attached to the bowstring here. Or actually, at this point, this is where you would say, like, in a more advanced implementation, this is where you would actually have the game engine assign the bone that drives the string to her left hand. but there is no string here, so it's really just kind of the arrow right now. Then we're going to pull this back a little bit. This is going to be the draw motion. Okay, so that's a little bit. So that, okay, so then this is the draw pose. So basically she's lined up with her target. Okay, so the bow's a little bit awkward, but it's fine. You can see, so from here to basically from our initialization pose, you had to go from here to here. Then she goes to here, which is like where the bow is drawn. And then this is the point where basically this is the last frame before she releases it. So you're going to have to, this is where you would actually go in the code and say, okay, once it hits this frame, take this projectile, unparent it from the weapon handle here, which is just her hand, and then turn it into a projectile that goes basically straight forward. And then the rest of this animation here is basically releasing the arrow. And then, so this here is kind of poorly done on my part. But the idea was that when she releases it, there's going to be a little bit of a recoil when she releases. So like when she pulls the arrow back, she pulls it like that and kind of releases her hand. This is where you would also see the bow kind of bend a little bit. Actually, can I control anything here? No. Let's see. No, that's fine. The bow, excuse me. And then, so you can see kind of that recoil. And then there's just her going back to her normal state. So yeah, so there are a couple of few key frames I want to keep in mind here. So there's going to be the starting pose, which will also be the ending pose. There's going to be the point. It's going to be the draw. Then there's going to be the release, and then just return the pose. So that's basically what we're going to want to try to accomplish here. So let's go ahead and kind of start making a little bit of modifications to the animation here. We're just going to do this one by hand. There's also other ways that you can do animations manually. You can do it with motion capture stuff. I plan to explore all of that stuff. Something I'm going to do a deep dive in at some point. But we'll just do a very simple manual animation here. It won't be very pretty, but it'll get the job done. So I got a couple animations here. Actually, it looks like I do have the bow animation in here. But we'll just do a new one from scratch. So let me just go back to default here. And then we're just going to do, we'll just clone this. We'll just call it bow animation. I actually have kind of assigned codes to animations to try to make them a little bit more referenceable in the game. So like the code can actually like kind of put together, like that's why there's a suffix and stuff. But for here, we don't need to worry about that. Okay, let's click on the rig, go in the pose mode. Another thing that I think is worth keeping in mind here is that we can actually bring our bow into the Blender scene. We can use it temporarily. So let me see if I can do that. Let's just go to link. I'm gonna find, models, weapons, bow one, and we're just gonna go grab the armature, and it's huge. Okay, that's not what we want. But that's actually a good thing to notice, right? So click link, not the armature. Let's do the object. That's gonna be still here. Okay, let me see something real quick. It's the armature, right? This is the cube. Let me just name this bow. There we go. Save that. It's going to be a little easier. Then we can also just scale everything down. Maybe we'll make it like kind of this size. And then we'll just apply all transforms. Make sure it still poses. You can. Fire, yep. Okay. It got tiny though. Give me a sec. Armature. Okay, we got the armature here. Bow, use the key. This is the string. Do a little bit of cleanup here. So if I shrink this down to about this size, right? I'm going to apply all the transforms. Yeah, but we'll probably see that there's going to be some issues with, yeah, see, the fire makes it smaller. That's fine. I think the reason why I got that is because of scale. So just got to select all these, basically. Delete the keyframes, and then Alt S to return the scale. Actually, before I do that, let's just turn that off. Alt S there. We should be good now. Okay. Put the pull back. Looks like, yeah, I think we're good now. Yep. All right, cool. Let's save this. We could just go back. All right. Pinned armature. But I don't know why it's not bringing the bow as well. Usually it does. That's fine. Let me see what I could do. Okay. Okay. This is at one scale. This is... Well, if I actually unparent this, give me a second. No, these are all scaled at one. Alright. I don't want to waste too much time here, but yeah, it should be able to fix... This should be fixable. It's probably just like not registering it, really. So let's look at it compared to the old one. Default. If I click the bow itself, this is the dimensions. This one, 0.15. Okay, yeah, this is actually a little bit bigger. So if I copy this in here, yeah, it's a little bit bigger. That's fine though. I think an iron bow is probably going to be a little bit bigger anyway. Yeah, so if I do parent clear, it doesn't change the scale. Okay, now we're good. Okay, it's just not importing it right. That's fine. Let's go back. But you can usually link it. Let's just go ahead and append it for now. This here, object mode. Yeah. Let me see something. Yeah, this is what I did. Okay. Yeah, it's just not really doing it right. It's fine. It's not the right scale. That's fine. Let's scale it down a little bit. We can at least see the rig here. And that should be useful. And then what we can do is we can enter pose mode. And we can select this bone right here, the base. And we can add a bone constraint. We'll just do copy location. Or how about copy transforms? The target's going to be the character's rig. Then we can kind of see how we kind of have something going there. So weapon, and then it's going to be in her right hands. So you can see how like we can kind of make that work. For some reason the scale's screwed up. But you can see how like we could kind of like hypothetically show it in here. I'm just not exactly sure why it's having trouble loading it. Let's see. I'm just gonna scale this down. Oops. Now, pose mode. This is copy transforms. Okay, it's fine. It's whatever. But yeah, this was like, and then you can do a head to tail to kind of like move it a little bit more down. I think one of the key things I also want to point out, actually before we go any further, is we look at the character rig. You're not going to see it here. Actually, you will see it here. This is supposed to be a weapon bone. And this is basically a bone perpendicular. Actually, if I go to the rig itself, if I could find the bone collection here, and we just do like the deformed bones. This is a bone, this weapon bone is perpendicular to the hand bone here. Oh, thank you for joining. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll probably wrap up around 10 o'clock here. We'll just kind of see how far we can go. Yeah, and then basically what this is here for, it's not really actually supposed to be rigged to any skin to any of the model. I kind of have it doing that by accident. But having a bone separate for this is very convenient because as you saw earlier in Godot, if I actually bring it up, there's these bone attachments I used here, which will attach to a weapon, L and R, and that's how I can attach weapons to her hands. It's just a very convenient thing to have. And then what's also really cool about this is if you have more like complicated weapons, you can animate this bone and control kind of how the weapon sits in the character's hand. In this case, it's basically just straightforward. And you can also place this such that the weapon itself goes in the right spot on the palm of the hand. So when you do the rig, it's good to add what these... I'll have to show how that's done when we... maybe in the full video or at some point. Anyway, let's go back. Where's my gigantic bow? Okay. Actually, I'm just going to delete this. I don't know why it's having trouble loading it. Okay. Actually, you know what we'll do? We'll just load my old one. It still didn't load the animation, but at least it's the model, but at least it's the right size. So I'll just do the same thing here. Good. Okay, I can't do that. I gotta do, there's like a fancy thing you do in Blender here. Whenever you link something, you have to I believe it's a library override. And then that allows you to do some stuff to it. Let me see if I can get that to work. Make selected. Okay, let's see. Now that should work. So now if I do the copy transforms, I can just copy it back to the rig on the weapon right hand, and you can see it's there. So that will just help us with the animation. I'm not going to export it with the character because we'll add it in Godot. But we'll do that for now. This is just a bow. Okay, so now let's talk about the animation. Object modes, go back to the rig. And now we're going to have to do our key poses. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. I'm going to use the IK bones for now. So let's remove the tweaks from the view. Okay. So we're going to have to put her in our base pose like we had before. This base pose like this. And that we're going to want to try to do something along those lines. So you can actually import references directly into Blender. If you could find a bow and arrow stock footage animation online, that's also a good place to start. But I could also just cheat here. And let me hide the gizmos. And we'll just go ahead and I'll just take some screenshots. Actually, can I somehow... Yeah, I'll just take a couple screenshots here. Go to the key poses. And then we'll do... And there we go. We got like a little bit of something in here. So if we go back to our reference, or our animation itself, just go ahead and go. That's fine. We'll just create a new collection. Let's call it BowRef. Go to my screenshots folder. Just kind of put these all in here. Should be able to just drag them in. It's not doing it. Okay, why? Oh, let me do it in object mode. This is not what I want. Where's my screenshots? Okay. Screenshots. Why did you disappear on me? Okay, there we go. There we go. I think it only got the one. That's fine. Let's get more. Okay, come on, Windows. Apologies. Alright, I'm just going to plug them all in like this. And then we'll do... Okay. I think we're good now. We have the references. Okay. So this is... kind of the base pose, right? I'm gonna shrink it down to her actual like body height. There we go. Something like that should be good, right? And then grab the other one. And this is just like a way you could do this. Don't have to really do, anything too fancy here. Just using this as a guide. Okay. Okay, this is, I had them a little bit backwards. It's fine. Something like that. Oh, thank you. Alright, this one is backwards. I cannot see it. Let's take these other three. Put them, okay, they're all in the same collection. I can hide these. Yeah. This one. Yeah, it's fairly correct. Put it like that. Yeah, and this is all just a reference. Generally speaking, you would just find something a little bit better online, but this is just for the sake of like demonstration here. But yeah, let me go ahead and organize these empties a little bit. This one is the release. This one is the, I'll just call it point. This one right here is the draw. Oops. And this one is the idle. And actually what I'll do as well is I'll label them numerically. So let's grab the idle. Just call this 0 idle. And then this is 2 draw. This is 1 point. And then this is 3 release. And then I like to also turn the select off on it so we don't actually select the reference image. Now we can go ahead and go to pose mode. And I'm going to use the IK, just kind of put stuff into place. And then we'll clean it up. Yeah, her shoulders and her hips we'll have to kind of fire, like, yeah, she's going to want to be looking a little bit forward as well. So let's see, kind of like something like that, right? We can, yeah, she's going to want to be facing her target, so, but I think she's going to still be kind of leaning forward a little bit. It's a little, all right, and then we'll move that hand back as well, but we'll play around with the 3D portion of it. Just grab kind of like the core things. Okay, another thing I like to do is with the hands and the legs, I like to turn the stretch off. There we go. Same with the legs. Like a stretch. Also looks like I do not have auto keying, so we'll make sure we did that on. And then same thing with this. We're going to just take the stretch off. That way she doesn't become Elastigirl or something like that while we're animating. So turn it off. And then we can kind of just, yeah, so pull this one forward a little bit. Yeah, we're going to kind of keep it, relax her hand a little bit, point it forward a little bit, yeah. And since she's grabbing the bow, I'm going to want to roll the fingers. I think, do I have fingers? Yeah, cool. I think there's a way I can actually like roll the fingers. Okay, it looks like that's not on this rig. Fingers. The detail, right? There is a way you can curl fingers. It's pretty cool. I have to look into it again, though. Oops. But yeah, basically the fingers. Oops. I turned it off for some reason. Okay. I'm just going to do it this way, and we'll just kind of rotate it on the z-axis. Or I think if I click local, right? X. It kind of, nah. There's a way you can like kind of curl the fingers. It's kind of similar. And we just do that. Just kind of give more space as well. But like this looks things you can do. It's fine. I'm just gonna scale the master bones to curl them. Oh, you're right. Thank you. Nice. Okay. So let me just undo that then. Cool. That's a lot easier. Okay. Here we go. I can remove the detail. Yeah, we're just going to scale. Scaling it in the wrong direction. But it's fine. I'll just scale. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit strange. That's fine. Ah, hey, good call. I like it. Thank you. I think it's just kind of that part of the rig is broken. But anyway, yeah, we curl the fingers. And we can kind of curl the thumb as well. There we go. Good enough. It gets the job done. And then, okay, so we got kind of like this base pose, right? Let's change it up a little bit. Make it a little bit fancier. Okay, yeah. I think she would also be kind of leaning in a little bit. We can kind of lean her legs down a bit. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's I appreciate you bringing that up. That's actually really cool. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we just kind of move her leg a little bit, put it on the floor. Okay, we got her heel raised a little bit. I think another problem with this too is that let's see. I think pulling back, right? Gonna kind of put her forward leg like that. I think we'll move this back a little bit, just counterbalance herself, right? I think we'll probably curl her in a little bit. That here, I get an idea like that, and then I'm going to make this hand a little bit more relaxed. Obviously her hair is clipping through the body, but whatever. Kind of. So yeah, so this will be like the base pose. She's going to be kind of looking probably out of her eye toward the target here. Now we're going to have to do the draw pose. And then, yeah, see if there's any other tweaks we want to make. This is kind of the other thing at animation. Okay, this is a little bit too symmetrical. I'm trying to think. Yeah, maybe we do kind of do it like this. Have our legs a little bit crisscross a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's cool. And then if you want to do like other tweaks too, like her neck. Shoulders or anything like that. Yeah, her shoulders are probably going to be more directly pointed at it. Yep. You want to like affect her hips a little bit as well. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so that's pretty good for a start. We got, and then typically you'll want to like look at it from all angles. I'd need a more of a front reference to see if this is like any good, but this is fine for now. Okay, so now we're going to start, and then what we're doing right now is what we call blocking. Blocking is a process where you're just going to identify the major keyframes in your animation, and you're just going to pose those. And a block helps you get a sense of the core motion without worrying about the in-betweens. And we could also use that as a way to sense the timing too. So the blocking is a very important concept in animation. So let's go ahead, turn that off. We'll work on our point. Let's just move it over to any keyframe we want that's just not the same one. Okay, so now we're going to take her hand, point it up with the bow straight out basically. And then this hand's going to have to overlap as well. Oh, I'm going to have to change the key stretch on that. So she could put the arrow there. One problem here, though, is that she cannot reach unless her hands are a bit closer together. So we're probably going to have to rotate these shoulders. Right. And then we could put her arms a little bit better here. So it's not perfect, but it's considerably better than it was. And this is okay, so there's a specific shoulder here, blade here, and this will help. Yeah, we could bend that shoulder. Move this. Just kind of do the best you can. This one also wouldn't be straight back out. You want to move it more toward the center of mass anyway. I would also rotate the one shoulder blade oops. Maybe not that much. Yeah, because I think this one's going to be a bit straighter out. This one's going to be more bent in. So I think we got it barely decent. Look at that, right? And then because we turned her shoulder, we're going to have to turn her head as well to continue pointing in that direction. Now, I know this looks a little janky, especially given her large chest, but we'll work with this. And I think it's also important kind of at this stage to not over-engineer this. Just kind of get it. Because otherwise we'll be here all day. We could also change kind of how the arm points to the IK. You can still get the work. So we look at the animation. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot of change between here. Also, I think a really good idea is to keyframe every bone. That way you don't have any weird artifacts when you go between your shots. So yeah, it's going to look really stiff because there's no animation between the legs. So we want to address that as well. You can kind of see in the keyframes though, or like in the examples, there's not actually a lot of movement in between the legs actually, but we'll have her body shift a little bit out let's see. Actually, when you're leaning forward, you probably want, yeah, I think body might move out in the opposite direction. So we'll just kind of work with that. Let's turn the model back on. We could just kind of turn the hips a little bit more inside and move them out a little bit. Kind of move her shoulders a little bit more forward. Maybe move her head like that. She's drawing, yeah, she's going to want it to, I think, maybe be a little bit more like that. Yeah, okay, cool. So she's going to lean into it a little bit. And then once we do that, okay, so this is the second frame. Oops, keyframe that. Also gotta just make sure everything is keyframed on 0 as well. So yeah, we're good. And now we're going to do the draw frame, right? So now we can hide the point, bring the draw in, and then we're just going to take this hand right here. Actually, before we do anything like that, I think when you're drawing the bow, you're still going to hold that position where you have like your chest's kind of still pointed a little bit out. But I will turn it just a tiny bit. And we're going to take this arm and basically pull it straight back like this. Something along those lines. This shoulder is messed up. Just going to change it. Right. Kind of relax it a little bit too. Pull it out. You can kind of see that she's got a little bit of that, and I think you can also see she kind of pulls her whole shoulders back a little bit. Well, actually, no, not as much, but her head turns. Oops. Kind of like in recoil. And you can kind of say pull her center of mass back a little bit. Kind of keep her legs in motion there a little bit. Just kind of get a rough idea of what this looks like. This hand, I think, still remains fairly stable. I can kind of pull it in a little bit. And let's also change, let's do that, right? So now if we do a keyframe, now we can kind of see there's motion now, right? I do think that in a standard bow and arrow shot, you're not going to see a whole lot of motion in the legs anyway. So yes, and then you're going to have this basically draw motion. And then now we're going to have to do the release. So we'll put that at frame 60 here. And then we'll finalize that. And then with the release, basically what's going to happen is you're going to go draw it, and then when you release, you just kind of go blink, blink. And then I think there'll have to be some sort of kind of like release with the hands. and then there ought to be kind of like a return to your base. But I think there would be still probably some sort of small recoil. So basically, she's just going to kind of move her hand out a little bit. We'll probably pull it like that. Maybe have it rise up a little bit too. And then there'll probably be like a small recoil here. Maybe like a small change to chest as well, shoulder. Like that. It's gonna be very subtle. And then so like there's this, and then there's that. And then this holds for a couple frames. Keyframe that, and then what we can do is just select frame 0, duplicate that. Now we should have an animation if we play it now. And then we'll just have to play around this timing a little bit. But you can see it's pretty slow motion, but it gets the job done. I'm just going to shrink this down to, let's see, maybe like 40 frames. It'd be a lot easier to see what's going on. Okay, and then now we can mess around with the timing a little bit. So like where she holds the frame can only be for a little bit, right? Actually, I want it even shorter. And I think what we're going to do is, like, when she gets into position, that's going to be pretty quick. The draw is going to take the longest. So we're going to probably move that to here. Let's give that a try. This, yeah, something along these lines, right? Now, you could probably even go and say, like, okay, I want some sort of like, so like she has her jog frame, right? Or maybe like an idle frame somewhere. I do not have, well, if we wanted to have her go from her T-pose, I don't think we want to do that. Just go back to our bow animation. Let's go ahead and save that as a fake user. And just kind of got, okay, and this is also very slow. I'm also going to shrink this down even further. Get 20 frames long. So it's going to need to be a little bit more snappy too. Okay. So once she fires, so there are things you can do to make the animation more polished. The one example was this in-betweens tool, because you can actually like push the pose toward the other keyframe as well. It's pretty convenient if you want to kind of adjust your in-betweens. We're going to go ahead and put this interpolation to constant so we can just see the block in action. Okay, and I think one of the things that I'm seeing here with the block on is let's kind of move this here. There we go. You can see kind of like it's a little bit more snappy. It's a little slower in the middle, snappier at the ends. But you can kind of see like with the draw, it's a little bit better. And I'm just gonna, let's move it in a little bit more. Let's try that. Okay, you can do kind of the same thing here. And now the timing feels a little better to me. Yep. All right. So I think this is where I'm going to stop for today. At least at this point now we have created a bow and we've created a firing animation, even though it's a very basic one. And then I think I'll schedule the next stream for tomorrow or Thursday, and then whenever go on, we'll finish the rest of it. So I appreciate anybody who hopped on. I hope this was informative. I hope, and let me know if there's any other questions. I think you can still type in the comments here. If not, you just leave a comment on the video that's produced after the stream. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and thank you for joining in. Have a great day.